Hi! Welcome back to Courage and Clutter. There are 3 reasons why the month of May is important to me. 1, it is National Mental Health Awareness Month. 2, it is National Eating Disorder Awareness Month. And 3, it is National Fat Liberation Month. And so, I figured this is the perfect time to talk to you about my identity as a fat woman. With a twist, I have a lot of spring cleaning to do. Coronavirus has led many of us to gain weight while our bodies try to figure out how to survive a global pandemic and deal with the stress and trauma that is happening in the world in addition to surviving a global pandemic. So, what does that mean? For me, it means a lot of my clothes don't fit me and make me feel good anymore. So, enjoy this voiceover, Corinne, while this Corinne does some trying on some clothes and figuring out what makes her body feel good and what no longer fits with zero judgment.
Okay, so while the Corinne you're watching goes through her entire wardrobe for the summer and spring, I think it's worth noting that we will cover mental health in future videos. But today I want to focus on being fat in my journey with diets and disordered eating. So consider this your content warning for those topics. And a quick disclaimer, I just want to say that I am one fat person. Okay, so my opinions and the tools and tips that I might share along the way are based on my own experiences, and I do not speak for all fat people. So please do not assume that because I am okay identifying as fat, that your other friends who are in larger bodies are also okay identifying as fat. That being said, onward to my story, my journey. So, like many young people, the media was not kind to me starting at a very young age. I began actually hating and battling my body when I was 8 years old. For me, I had a lot of skinny family members. My mother and my sister were relatively skinny. My cousin, who was my best friend at the time, was extremely skinny. And so at 8 years old, I have memories of looking around at these people in my life, specifically the women in my life, and seeing their bodies look vastly different than mine. I was a chunky kid growing up, and, the messages that I got from the media and my family, that fat equals bad. And I learned at 8 years old that the worst thing that you could possibly be was fat. I have a vivid memory of the first time I thought I was fat. And the reason I know it was 8 years old is because there's this picture of me in my grandmother's house, in my grandmother's bathroom, actually, where I'm holding a hairbrush. And, I just have like a normal 8-year-old round belly. And it's not even that round. But I remember seeing that picture after it was developed and having just like the ultimate repulsion towards the way my body looked compared to my mom, my sister, my cousin, my friends. And that was the moment that I remember thinking for the first time that I was fat and making the association that I'm fat, I must be bad because the messaging I'm getting is that fat is bad, so I must be bad. And then let's add in the fact that in 3rd and 4th grade, I started developing curves and boobs. And so let's add in, the objectification that comes from middle school and younger boys and girls who are going through puberty. The early 2000s was a brutal time to be anything but stick thin. I started realizing around about 10 years old and needed to diet, or I thought I needed to diet. So I experimented with things like anorexia and bulimia without anyone knowing. And I still was never small enough, despite all of the restricting, the dysmorphia that I had in my head, the difference of like how I looked in the mirror versus what my brain told me I looked like was becoming a problem. I mean, at this time I was in middle school and I would say I was a size 6 or so, 6 or an 8, which, 8 is the beginning of plus size. And even if I was plus size, I was in the most privileged category of plus size. So along came high school. And in high school, I really got into learning about diets. I learned about things like Atkins in South Beach and, restrictive dieting. So like clean eating, quote unquote, or no dairy, no sugar, no carbs. I tried it all and, would try things and then, fail because obviously trying to eat restrictively when you are a growing teenager, not buying your own groceries and not making your own dinners most of the nights of the week, eating family meals is a very difficult thing to do. So when I inevitably failed, I would punish myself and just like sit in this puddle of shame, really having like no control over what I was eating, but thinking that it was still my fault for not being able to keep to these diets. And also in high school became really aware of exercise as a tool to manipulate my body and to punish my body too. So I have always been active, always done sports growing up. I've done soccer since I was like 5 years old, was still doing soccer in middle and high school. So I had a quote unquote reason to run, for training, but I would use that to my advantage and run on the weekends or in the summertime to the point of pain and nausea and punishing my body, thinking that I deserved it and thinking that, the pain and the nausea were things that I deserved for not looking the way that I thought I should or that society was telling me I should. And I was shrinking to an extent. At my smallest, I was a size 6. And, even then it was never enough. Like looking in the mirror, I never saw what other people saw. But we'll get there. Anyway, flash forward to senior prom. And senior prom, I have vivid memories of another photo. There's this one photo that was taken of me where I'm turning sideways and I'm kind of slouched over. And, in any like slouched photo, you would think that there would be like stomach rolls or, some sort of fat that you're able to see just generally from a body being in a slouched position. But in this photo, I'm so thin that like, how do I describe it? Like the width of my head is like the width of my stomach from a side profile view. And I had so much praise for this picture when I posted it on Facebook at the time, with friends saying things like, oh my God, you're such a skinny bitch. You look so good. You're so hot. You're like practically see-through. And all of these comments that were supposed to be positive and uplifting fed my diet demon, so to speak. And I still thought I was fat. And looking at, these comments and the photo, the dissonance in my head was that these people were making fun of me and they didn't actually feel these ways about me, and that, they were poking fun at how huge I was still. Where clearly, now looking back at that photo, I looked so unhealthy and so unhappy. Moving on to college. College was like the supplement phase for me. That was when Dr. Oz and Oprah and all of these people were really getting into like tricking your body into weight loss. So things like green Cambodia, raspberry ketones, apple cider vinegar, all of these things that I remember trying in college and taking pretty religiously to try to lose weight. And, the weight stayed off. And so when I moved across country, my reason for moving here was for an apprenticeship, specifically a theater and acting apprenticeship that at the time was an unpaid program. And most of us in that program had food stamps and had government assistance in that way. And so with my food stamps, I remember trying to save my food stamps and living off of as little food as possible during that time period. That ultimately work became my new diet and restriction plan. I would wake up at 6 a.m., go for a run in the park for about an hour, bike my way into work at my apprenticeship, do my apprentice classes, my apprentice office duties, whatever I needed to do, and then would come home and make myself dinner or stay there and work a show that night. So I wasn't eating a lot. I was living off of as little food as possible, and work became something that I could invest more time into if I wasn't eating. So I got more work done because I would skip a lunch break. I got more work opportunities as an actor because I was skinnier. At my lowest point during this apprentice program, I was only eating like a single sauteed onion for dinner. And that was the whole meal. That was it. That was the dinner, was a sauteed onion. And I remember feeling satiated by that, which just is outrageous to say now, to like think back on the fact that that was how far it had gotten without me even realizing it. Because here's the thing, at that point, I was merely restricting, quote unquote, merely restricting. And we don't talk enough about how restricting still super destructive behavior and so bad for your body. At the end of my apprentice program, we had to write solo shows. And so my entire solo show was about my body dysmorphia, was about how unhappy I was in my own skin. But looking back on it, you can just see how disconnected my brain was with my body. I still at that time was about a size 8, size 10, a very, very, very small plus size. After writing this solo show and performing it, I ended up in a slew of different, corporate jobs or restaurant jobs that just perpetuated this idea of work being an appropriate form of restriction and a reason not to eat and to stay thin. And then come 2018, I started working out harder than ever. My sister at that time was leading a diet group and wanted me to be a part of her group because she knew that I was unhappy. And so, best intentions with inviting me to be a part of this workout group, but something snapped about halfway through the program in my head, where I was lying on the floor, covered in sweat, completely exhausted, pushed myself to the point of pain again. Old habits die hard. And I just looked in the mirror and I thought about all of the time that I had spent focused on food and focused on shrinking and focused on exercise. And I asked myself, what am I doing? What is the purpose of this anymore? The purpose was to be healthy and happy, and I don't feel either of those things. I thought about all the time that I spent freezing and shivering, not knowing that that's your body telling you that you're starving and you're in starvation mode. And the worst part, when I was laying on the floor looking in the mirror, was that I thought about when this all started. And that's when I realized that I was about 8 years old when it started. And at the time, I had an 8-year-old niece. And it broke my heart to think that she could possibly be having the same thoughts, and to think that I let myself at 8 years old be completely crushed by these standards that were unattainable for me. And I deserved better. I deserved so much better than what I was doing to myself. From 2018 till now, I made a true investment in my health. I got a therapist. I finally got a primary care provider. I stopped formally dieting. I educated myself about set point weight and the capitalist manipulation of diet industry. I learned that there was an entire world outside of the wellness industry that makes me much happier. And like, am I fixed? No, absolutely not. I still have to remind myself that work is not an excuse to skip a meal, that food is always in the budget, that my round belly is not the enemy, but it belongs to an 8-year-old who needed to see someone like me, someone who is fat, who can love all her body no matter what it looks like. Like, I want to wear bikinis and crop tops until I'm 97 and feel the sun on my belly and have photographs to prove that I was here. So I released, and I started actually practicing releasing my belly. I'd sucked in my stomach for so long that I didn't realize how much holding my core I was doing on a daily basis. And I started touching my skin with love and caressing my thighs and my stomach instead of grabbing it and pinching it and poking it and willing it to shrink. And I got rid of clothes, that don't fit me anymore. I got rid of clothes that no longer made me feel happy and good about myself. I stopped holding on to things, hoping that one day I would fit into them. And so this is what I do yearly, twice a year usually. I go through my closet and I just try everything on. It's a good way to remember what I have, and it's a good way to get rid of things that aren't serving me. I'll donate them. I will give them to Goodwill. I'll give them to friends. I'll sell them to make a little extra money so I can buy clothes that do fit me. It's a privileged position to be in, to be able to rotate through clothes, but it's also a necessary one for me in my recovery. Like, I want to be the fat aunt and mom one day and grandmother one day that teaches the children in her life that their body is wonderful and fat is a description, not a bad thing. Saying fat is something that I am still working on taking back. It's a word that I'm still trying to neutralize as a descriptor, just as you would say brunette or funny or short. All of these things that I would also identify as. Fat is just another word. It's not bad. It just is. Being fat makes me no less human. But I do just want to reiterate that that is a word that I use not seeking sympathy, not seeking your pity, not seeking your confirmation that I am anything other than fat. I am fat and I am fucking beautiful. I've come to a place of acceptance and confidence and well-being. Now, of course, I work in an industry that commodifies thinness as a way to have more opportunities, but I spent years preparing for how I would need to armor up against society's messaging of, quote, thin equals healthy. And let me be crystal clear. No one cares more about my health than me. I see my therapist weekly. I see my primary care provider at least once a year, and she knows all about my relationship with diet culture and disordered eating. And while I was on the path to my fibromyalgia diagnosis, part of that process was a slew of blood lab work and tests that I had to undergo that were endless. But the results of those blood tests and those x-rays and labs was that I was healthy. I was extremely healthy and in good health. And my doctor reiterated that very clearly in telling me that my results were strong. And that's actually kind of part of how fibromyalgia is diagnosed, when there are no clear results showing up on tests, but there's clearly pain symptoms. It's usually an indicator that fibromyalgia is involved. Anyway, so the point is that my doctor has agreed that even in my fat body, I am extremely healthy. And this is important to reiterate for me because fat and health are not directly influential on each other. At my skinniest and most societally praised body, I was in awful health. And now, in my fat and happy body, I am in the best physical health I can be, even though I have chronic illnesses like depression, anxiety, and fibromyalgia, which are not correlated with my current body size, just my past traumas. Again, another video. And I'm happy to share more about set point range and what I've learned about going off of diets and how disordered eating causes you to gain weight until you settle at a point where your body is the happiest. For me, that seems to be a size 16/18, and that's totally okay. But I think what I just want to summarize my story here today with is that there's a lot more to cover here. Covering my relationship with food again, my relationship with exercise again, recovery and facts about weight and diets and the tools that helped me and the tips that I have to give you are all things I hope to go over one day. Basically, it's all baby steps, right? There are so many more things that I want to get into about the ableism and capitalism and the hard truths about gaining weight. But for now, I just want to remind you that growing and being in a bigger body is okay. Your body grows over the course of your lifetime to keep you safe, to get you to a place that you need to be. Your body is not the enemy. It's actually really freaking cool, and I can't wait to share more with you about what I've learned along the way. But for now, here's what I've learned about my wardrobe.
Okay, so I'm gonna wipe away my sweat so I can talk about a couple things I learned. 1, I learned that my predictions of what I was going to donate and what I wanted to keep totally didn't matter. Once I finally started putting on clothes, some of the clothes that I assumed based on holding them up to my body or remembering the way they made me feel actually fit and actually were things that I was like, I want to put this back in the cycle. I can see using in a new way. So some of the tank tops, for example, that I used to wear with jeans are now shorter because my belly has expanded. And so putting them on, I was like, I know this isn't going to fit. I know this is going to be too small. It's a Target medium. I am not a Target medium. And so putting it on my body, I was like, okay, so this is obviously going to get donated. But then realizing I'm really enjoying wearing high-waisted things. This is basically just a crop top now. I can wear this as a crop top. It looks great. Similarly, some of the dresses that I had already kind of made up in my mind that I was going to give away, I decided to keep the black, just plain black dress with the tank top sleeves. I've had that for, I don't know, maybe 10 years now, a long time. And it's an Old Navy medium, but it's the perfect fabric that it's stretchy and super soft and worn in. But I could totally see wearing it as a skirt, layering a shirt over it and it being a skirt. So I'm keeping it. Things that I'm bummed about. Some of the long sleeve dresses that I had, I really thought they still fit me. And they do, you saw, they fit, but they don't feel good on me anymore. I think my style's changing a lot, and I'm realizing that a lot of the clothes that I anticipated liking because of their shape on a hanger or the shape that they were on me when I was 20, 30 pounds lighter, what I imagined them to look like on my body wasn't what I was seeing. And the way the fabric felt on my butt and my hips specifically, totally different this summer than it was last summer. So they gotta go. I think I just can't reiterate enough how much, especially as you're learning to adjust and give up diet culture, or if you are in recovery, or if you even are just post-COVID, know you've gained some weight and maybe you're, I don't know, whatever you choose to do. One of the things that I've noticed is when your body is in flux, elastic clothes, things that have like, hold on, the skirts. So like this red skirt with the elastic and the stretchy fabric. So great. To have something that you know your body is going to either grow or shrink, and will still fit you no matter what, because it takes away that level of fear. And for me, like the anticipation of like, I really like this. Is it actually still gonna fit me? Doesn't flare up. And especially in the beginning of your recovery journey, then it doesn't like cycle you into that shame spiral. You know, it lets you start breaking some of those old patterns when you have an excuse not to go there, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to do the rest of like my jeans and my shorts and my sweatshirts, because I know my jeans fit because I did that last week, which was the inspiration for doing this. And then I, don't want to really go through winter clothes because I'm hot and toasty. I don't need to worry about that until the fall. And we don't know what my body will be in the fall. Maybe it'll be smaller, maybe it'll be bigger. Who knows? Hey, if you have any ideas, though, of what to do with sentimental t-shirts, let me know, because I'm not getting rid of this ever, and I want to see it. I can't think of anything else. You're enough, exactly as you are. I'm enough, exactly as I am. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.